What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel where we make awesome drum and bass things happen for you. And today we're going to talk about something really cool. We're going to talk about an old Kanine song that I recently rediscovered, which I used to love. So recently I did a complete breakdown and full drop tutorial on a Kanine song called Higher, which is super epic, which at the time of posting this video may or may not yet be on my channel, so subscribe and go check that out. And that actually worked out really, really well. We got super close to the original. And then I was reminded, listening to some Spotify Kanine songs, of Headlock, which is one of the songs actually that got me into listening to Kanine. Super epic. Heard it for the first time, I think, back at Let It Roll in like maybe 2019 or something like that, and just instantly hooked on that energy. And quite similar to Higher, except a little bit more post-processing stuff that we had to do. So super interesting to have a recreation of this going on. So since it's a pretty old song, let's remind ourselves of what it sounds like. Woo! Very cool. Okay, and this is what we have. So I would say relatively close. I will say there's definitely some alternative post-processing on Kanine's side that I'm just not fully aware of. However, still a really cool sound to have in your library and to understand how to make, because there's quite some sound design techniques in there. So let's dive into how we did this. So first of all, we have these notes here, and I'll just include the MIDI in the free preset link in the description below, along with the preset for Serum for this sound. However, a version of this sound is also a part of the Drum and Bass Essentials preset pack that's now available on our website in the link below. So we're gonna start out with these notes here, and I just wanna show you the difference between what we're gonna do in Serum and the post-processing, because here's the finished end product, and you can see that we actually have quite a lot of post-processing on there. And even though most of it is just sort of noise shaping, it does make a lot of difference, because this is with everything. And this would be with only the stuff from Serum. So that's not quite yet what we're looking for, and I just want you to be aware of that while we go through this process. So let's go to Serum, get an initialize patch, and we're gonna start off with two wavetables that you might not own right now, but that you can make yourself, or I will probably just include them in the free download for this video, where the preset and the MIDI files are. You see, I have the wavetables. I think they're from Massive. I can't quite remember. And I have this sine square, and it's actually a really beautiful wavetable because it morphs between a rounded square and a sine wave. Now you can actually do this as well yourself by going into this editor and using the crossfade option and just manually adding some harmonics here. You can get very close to that. If you want to know more about that, by the way, we dive into how to do stuff like that in Drum and Bass Sound Design Mastery. Breaks it down real nice for you in a nice and understandable manner, but beyond the scope of this video, so I'll just include this wavetable down below. So we're gonna get two of these actually, on oscillator A and on oscillator B. And we're gonna keep one of them at sort of mostly a sine wave, but one of them we're gonna squarify out a bit. And then we wanna keep this one just at the normal level, but this one we wanna up to about 3 octaves. So this is gonna take care of our higher harmonics in the sound. Now also, we're going to be doing a lot of frequency modulation, but we want to frequency modulate both of these waveforms. So we can't do FM from A or FM from B. We need to employ a sub. So we're going to turn the level of the sub all the way down, and then we're going to get FM from sub oscillator on both of these. And this will actually be one of the most important parts of the sound, because this is really where we're going to fine tune the grit, that part of the sound, like how much that comes to the front or not. And it's also going to determine how much tonality we get in the sound, which is a bit of a thing in this particular style of sound as well, because it's easy to get too much melodic content, which we'll see in a minute when we start twisting buttons. So right now, this doesn't sound exciting at all. It sounds like this. What we want to do now is we want to start upping these FM from the subs to somewhere about here. And then we want to see what octave we need to play with on this sub oscillator, because the higher the octave is, the faster the wave is going to be. So the more it's going to interfere or modulate these two sine square waves. So we can hear that as well. Now, actually, we can hear that that is too much. So what we want to do maybe is actually change this to be FM from B. See how that works out. So that is a lot better already. The reason for that is when you're FMing, you want to find the correct amount of FM to apply. You can always notice that when you move the FM button that there's like a sweet spot somewhere. And you just got to go find that. However, sometimes it's not about moving this button. Sometimes it's about the modulation source. So what we have going on now is we have this one being modulated. So the upper harmonics being modulated very fast by a 4 octave here. And this one, we tried to do that, but it gave too much melodic content. So we actually just wanted to be frequency modulated by this squarish kind of wave that is an octave lower. And that way we can sort of play with and find the sweet spot between all the modulations to get the right amount of grit versus melody. Hey, quick break. If you're enjoying these videos and you like my style of teaching and you've been feeling like you want to get more into sound design, specifically for drum and bass, then maybe you want to check out my brand new online course called Drum and Bass Sound Design Mastery. It's an absolutely massive course with over 150 videos spanning 14 hours of content where we teach you 2 things. In the first half, we teach you everything there is to know about synthesizing sound in Serum. And in the second part, we show you how to use that knowledge to create the most popular sounds in drum and bass. I guess you can see it like the ultimate masterclass of drum and bass sound design. So if that sounds like something you could be interested in, check the link in the description below to find out more about this awesome course. All right, let's get on with the video. Now, of course, we need to go and distort this. And just to get a little bit of extra control, let's go and pick the X shaper so that we can sort of draw the curve ourselves. And I'm pretty sure that this is relatively close to just using one of the other distortion options, but I found that this just, it gives you a little bit more control. Now, we can still hear that there's a lot of that squarey upper harmonics going on, and that's not exactly what we want. So we can dial back this volume to just get a little bit less of that. Maybe we can actually make this slightly more siny as well. And you can also hear that some of these notes are kind of going wrong. So let's go and put these random phases down because they might be interfering with each other in a way that we don't want. Let's start drawing a shape because we need to apply some filtering, and also the original sound is very noisy. And so we want to create some noise just to fill up that, you know, that grit and that dirt a little bit more. So let's create one of these well-known shark fin-esque shapes. Something like this, and let's start putting that on the cutoff of the filter. Of course, we have to make it apply to A and B, and we also probably want to apply it to the noise. Although I'm actually not super sure about that. We can check that later. Turn that down a bit, and let's keep this all the way. And let's put this somewhere in the middle here, and let's do some aggressive filtering. Let's put it on an MG load 24. And so we definitely already see that, of course, we need to put this on trigger mode, but we also want to have this be a bit faster. Let's turn this up a bit. And I think we want to put it on envelope mode instead, so that we can actually follow the notes properly and it doesn't play all the time. And then we want to use this as well to modulate the level of that noise. That's better. Then let's start making the sound a little bit wider. Let's add some chorus, but not too much, just a little bit, just to get some extra voices in there. And let's also add some hyperdimension, right? And we want to put that after the distortion because we want the distorted signal to be duplicated and not the pre-distorted signal. So we're not going to use any dimension, but we will apply a bit of this hyper here. And let's also see if we can EQ a little bit before we do that and maybe just get a little bit more juice out of it. So we can go and maybe grab like a bell curve type of thing here. Something like that. Let's try it for something like that. And then another thing that we can do, we can actually go ahead and add a filter to this. Especially the flange filters here tend to do a little bit, adding a little bit more grit. That's pretty cool. We turn up the drive a little bit and turn up that resonance a bit. And it's just going to add some comey goodness to it. However, let's do that and see if it does something after we've done all the post-processing, because this is just a little bit of an extra addition here. What we can do though is see if we can add some more stuff using the multiband compressor, especially because we're looking for the right balance between tonality and grit here. We can see what we can do with these bands here. And let's maybe turn down the level of this noise a bit as well so it can get less aggressive, and let's pick the bright white or something like that. Also, I'm hearing now that it's a little bit fast actually. So earlier we switched to an eighth note, but we're still in trigger mode. But maybe we can even afford to switch back to a quarter note here while it's on envelope mode now. That's a lot better. And by the way, this is a great tip as well. If you're struggling to make the sound, quite often changing the speed of your LFO actually makes a large part of the difference. You might just be working on not the right note. You might have to take a triplet or a dotted note, even something interesting to just play with once in a while to see what that does to your sound too. All right, great. Now let's start adding some post-processing, and then we can dial in the other things and change them a little bit later based on what else we're going to do with this. So we want to add a bunch more saturation. We want to add some targeted saturation, and I probably want to add a little bit of a noise layer as well, because we can hear here that it's quite... There is some noise like on the background there, and it's quite full, right? Whereas is not that full yet. So let's go and do that. Let's start by adding a little bit of pizzazz with an amp. So if you don't have an amp, you can definitely find a free VST. If you're not running Ableton, you can find a guitar amp VST, or maybe Guitar Rig 6 I think is free now. I'm just going to use Ableton's amp because it's awesome. Now, however, you're going to notice this is going to go really hard, really fast, and that's not what we want. But we can dial down this dry wet and just get a little bit of that juice. So first of all, we're not going to use this blues option. We're probably going to use this lead or the bass option or something like that. Yeah, so we can probably use the heavy or the bass option. So then next, let's see if we can add some multiband distortion to get a little bit more crunch out of that sort of upper mid end, because that's where it's really gonna give that punch into it. So let's get something along the lines of Shaperbox, where we can take a band and distort that. By the way, if you can't afford or just don't have one of the more fancier plugins, I do believe there's a free multiband saturation plugin. I think it's called Fire. I'll leave a link in the description below if I can find it, which is free multiband distortion, which I'm going to be exploring in a video very, very soon, actually. So you could use that in lieu of this. But the most important part is that you can pick a distortion type that is not the soft clip. We're going to go for something like this, like the skew fold, where it's going to really kind of mess up and gnarly up the sound. And we want to pick quite a small band here and see where the sweet spot is. And also, in this case of Shaperbox, we want to make sure that we really only get that band. So we're gonna, this cutoff, we're gonna put at 24 decibels so that it's really just mostly this band. So that actually sounds pretty cool. It's gonna give it a little bit more grit. Now, one thing that I'd like to address really quickly is if we go back into Serum here, we have the pitch of the noise at 50%. So we get a very audible pitch. If we wanted that to be a little bit more subtle, we could actually just up the noise on this pitch. And it's just gonna, well, literally up it in pitch, but it's gonna make it a little bit softer and convert it more towards the high end. Which I think in this case sounds a bit nicer. All right, next let's add an erosion. So what erosion does as well is it actually sort of distorts the signal with targeted noise, and that also can add some really nice body to the sound. We can increase this width as well to just give more on a wider frequency spectrum. Just gives it a little bit of a different feeling to it. And then let's maybe see if we can add some more saturation even, just to make the sound extra gritty. And let's actually put it before the erosion here so that we don't saturate that noise that we're putting on in the end. Let's put it on a soft sine here, and let's just add about 8 decibels, but let's also decrease the output so that we don't go crazy here. Now you can hear that it's definitely sounding a lot more noisy. You can sort of mix and match all of these distortion options as you want. And you can also go back into the Serum patch in a minute and sort of change some of the parameters there for it to sound cleaner or not. For now, let's just quickly add a little bit of reverb. So I'm choosing to add reverb here at the end of the chain because if you did in Serum already, then of course all this distortion would have come over the reverb. That's not really what we want. So let's add a little bit here with any of your favorite plugins, something like maybe this. Okay, so we've built the basic infrastructure. However, you can hear that our recreation, our end product here sounds like this. And we currently sound like this. So now we've arrived at the fine-tuning process. We've got all the major elements down and we just need to get the right sound. And what we can hear is we need to actually maybe decrease a little bit of that noise layer and add some more melody. And I just want to say to you that this is a big part of making sounds. Sometimes you might be discouraged that you're not getting there just yet, but all you need to do really, the process, is to get all the tools ready to go and then to go into the fine-tuning phase like we are going to do now to get what you want. All right, so the first thing that we could do is we could actually key track this filter because that'll allow it to come through a little bit more. We can already hear that makes a big difference. We can also see if we need to up any of these FMs a little bit more. Probably somewhere around 35 and 30. We can also see if this little bell here must be a bit higher maybe. And also, now the noise is being processed by all of this stuff here, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe actually just we want to put it on direct out. And that actually already makes it a lot better. We can also try to move these wavetable positions around a bit. So maybe this is better off being a sine. You can see that we can change the tonality quite a bit there as well. I do think we should keep this probably at something like a rounded square somewhere here. Now, another thing that we can do to it is this sound is very mono-ish. It's not really, but it does sound so. We can use the free wider plugin somewhere at the end of the chain before the reverb to take all of our processing. And what wider does, by the way, is it makes multiple copies of your sound that all slightly differ from each other. It is mono compatible, but it does make it sound a lot more stereo. And we can just see what that does to it. So that definitely gives it a little bit of extra juice as well. You do have to watch out with this. It might, make your sound a little bit phasey or out there. But I think in this case, that might be what we want. And then let's see also, again, now that we've got some more things in place, is this band in the right place? Can we distort somewhere where it makes a little bit more of a cool difference than here? You could also pick a different type of folding as well. Maybe let's try this triangle fold. So actually, maybe that's better. And then finally, one thing we might want to do is we might want to just take an EQ and do some stuff there. Especially after we've added all of these harmonics, maybe we just want to give it a little bit of a top end boost. Maybe we want to give it a little bit more of this as well. You can also see that some frequencies are missing here, or not missing, but we could maybe add a little bit of a bump here. But I guess all of those things are absolutely to your taste. I think the key is to find a sound that you like, learn how to make it like we did today, and then give it your own spin. And I think that leaves us at the end of this video. We've made something that's very close to the sound. We've seen some interesting things with 2x frequency modulation and various types of saturation affecting the sound later on. Now it's up to you to take the sound and make it into something your own. All right, that was the video. Thank you for watching. Once again, if you have anything that you want to give me in terms of feedback, or if you want me to do a specific song or a specific sound for you, please leave it in the comment below. Give me a like and a subscribe as well. I know I hate asking for that stuff, but it helps the algorithm put this content out to more people like you to learn more about drum and bass. And come on, isn't that what we all want? We all want more drum and bass in the world. All right, thank you for watching. Good luck producing today, and I'll see you in the next one.